What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So the biggest topic right now online continues to be Palworld, and the conversation around it has just gotten weird now with certain claims of plagiarism being questioned. We have lawyers playing the game. Oh, and a roadmap that just got dropped on top of more sales info. So we're going to go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about another Sony remaster for the PS5 from the PS4 era that once again could be signaling a state of play coming up soon. And we're also going to be taking a look at a statement that was released from Fantastic, you know, the studio behind The Day Before. Well, you're going to want to see this one. It's a little out there. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if new here to the Small and Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Nintendo, the 3DS, and the Wii U. As they had previously said last year in April of 2024, these services for online would be shutting down. And now we have a firm date. We can see this posted up over on their official X account, where they say, as of April 8th, online play and other functionality that uses online communication will end service for 3DS and Wii U software. Thank you very much for your continued support of our products. And they also mentioned March 11th, you can merge your unused Nintendo eShop balance to your Nintendo account so that it can be used on Nintendo Switch. So definitely do that so you don't just leave funds on, I guess, a service they're shutting down and then it just disappears. As for things like Pokemon Bank and Poke Transporter, those will still be accessible, so at least that's not completely gone. But yeah, end of an era completely. I mean, as of April 8th, that means the Vita and the PS3 would have outlasted the 3DS and the Wii U, which is something I would have never expected after how the generation went, especially for the Vita against the 3DS. But there you have it. We have just a couple of months now until those services are completely shut down. And I know the big push for Nintendo obviously has been to their new infrastructure with Nintendo account and that setup. So here's hoping that runs quite a bit longer than what we saw here with the 3DS and the Wii U service. Also, we do have a pretty cool event that's going to be posted up on Nintendo's YouTube account. We can see this posted up once again over on their official X account, where they say, mark your calendars for the special The Legend of Zelda Orchestra concert. You can visit their YouTube channel on February 9th to watch the full pre-recorded performance. And I mean, we've heard about these different concerts and orchestras and stuff for many different franchises. I know Final Fantasy is a big one that happens with Square Enix, but The Legend of Zelda, I feel like they've done these like previously a couple years ago. I think they were even on tour for a bit, but yeah, this should be really cool to see. And it is neat that they are going to make it available on YouTube to experience, whereas before you'd have to just hope you can catch it, whether it's in your area or travel toward it or just set up the overall logistics to make that happen. So I think pretty cool idea. Look towards that one again, February 9th. Make sure you're there. That they say will be going live 8 a.m. Eastern time. Oh, and we do have a new PlayStation 5 System update that seems to lean into just doing more updates for some of their new audio accessories and earbuds, which we can see over on their website. This is version 24.01-08.60.00, rolls right off the tongue. So they've added new features in parties. So in the parties tab, you can now see the list of parties you've joined in the past. So you can easily restart a party. Maybe if you had a bunch of friends in there, rather than have to go through and invite each one individually, you can hit a button from a recent room and just kind of bring everyone in. They also updated the device software for upcoming Pulse Elite wireless headsets and those Pulse Explore wireless earbuds. So you can use the sound equalizer feature, the side tone feature that makes it easier for you to hear your own voice in voice chats, and they have also improved, go figure, system software performance and stability, as well as messages and usability on some screens. So of course, go ahead and get updated, especially if you are someone who has bought or is buying one of these newer audio accessories with their headphones or earbuds, as there is quite a bit of functionality being added here. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Palworld, which continues to roll along online places like obviously social media with Twitter, where the conversation is just exploding, and their sales are as well, as they have now passed 7 million copies sold, this just being completely through Steam apparently, and they've also passed 2 million concurrent players as like the max they've seen, and overall on Xbox Game Pass or PC Game Pass, it's at the top. It's number one. That's above some pretty popular games, and now it seems that, of course, the discussion around plagiarism continues to kind of break down a bit. We've already gone over the AI talk and how that kind of got put on the back burner after the evidence just wasn't very good. It was pretty flimsy based on previous interviews and discussion points with the CEO years ago. But now even certain things around what I thought was probably the better evidence that was out there for the idea of them just outright ripping and copying some of the models for Pokemon, which we can see. This is posted up over on X. This is from Palmer, who says that the models being one-to-one, the person then had to later admit to scaling them to fit. Now, I guess the idea would be that they're scaling so they're the correct size, so you can at least line them up and show that certain aspects and features are the same. But now you start to bring in a question around editing the models, and again, it becomes even more shaky on evidence. It just really has not been that compelling, because we all look at the pals in Palworld, and no one's denying that it's the Pokemon we have at home, right? It's sure, you could call them just ripoffs of the different Pokemon, and you could probably look at a pal and be like, okay, I know what Pokemon this is based on, but the idea of essentially saying that they are ripping models and using even assets from Pokemon games, that seems to be more and more of a stretch as we've gone along, because there's a lot of eyes right now on Palworld, and the evidence you feel like would be much more solid by now based on how many people are looking at this game and talking about it. And it's really gotten off the rails now, because Bloomberg's talked to different lawyers about this. We even have actually GameFile. This is over on VG247, who got a lot of this info together, but GameFile had talked to the Pokemon company's chief legal officer from 2008 to 2020, Don McGowan, who says this looks like the usual ripoff nonsense that I would see 1,000 times a year when I was chief legal officer of Pokemon. I'm just surprised it got this far. But to follow up, Bloomberg talked to Brandon Huffman, who's the founding attorney at Odin Law and Media. And this is a firm that says that they are among the areas that specialize in anyway for the video game industry, says that it really doesn't seem to be at risk of any legal repercussions, saying that adopting colleagues and ideas from existing titles of recent years, especially when it comes to survival and battle royale focused games, with Palworld being the former. And what's really funny is another of Odin's attorneys, Connor Richards, argued after playing 10 hours of the game that Palworld's pals don't really look like Pokemon. They have simpler designs, being similar takes on regular animals, and more complex ones not being exact copies of Pokemon. None of them give you the impression that they're supposed to be the Pokemon. And I do wonder if that's one of the reasons that we really haven't seen Nintendo or the Pokemon company make any serious legal moves towards Palworld, because again, it's been around for a while. We talked about the trailer dropping back in 2021. Now we're up to it launching just at the start of 2024. You could have seen the pals there, and you feel like, okay, obvious that they used our assets or what have you there. Let's just go after them. It's really the idea of, do they have the copyright on a sheep? So it's just not as, I think, solid ground to stand on in court as many people on Twitter believe that it is. So it kind of feels like we're also working beyond the idea of just plagiarism allegations. But I do understand, as we've seen many artists online are like, man, they're definitely pulling like the most amount of inspiration they can to where it is basically a ripoff for the designs. What does that mean for the future of the games industry? Because I will tell you this, many big publishers who want to have a live service game that's successful is taking notes right now with Palworld. As crazy as that sounds, because yeah, it's not the prettiest looking game. Yes, it looks like it's using a lot of default assets for Unreal Engine, but it's tied all these mechanics together in I'd say a bundle that is genuinely fun to play, and the sales and concurrent player count numbers certainly reflect that. Anyway, with all of that done, we do have an early access roadmap that was released by the Palworld account, addressing critical issues as sometimes the world data may experience rollbacks, the loading screen may persist when trying to load into worlds. Going from there, improvements to implement ASAP includes key configuration improvements to base PAL AI and pathing, which, yeah, sometimes the PAL in your base will just not do certain tasks, whether it's, for example, a fire type PAL that would work to create ingot out of ore and stuff, where they have to use the furnace. They just will stand there and not do it. But they also have planned future updates, includes PvP, raid bosses for endgame content, PAL Arena, Steam and Xbox crossplay, which means they would have to bring the Xbox up to parity with the Steam version. So they have some work there to do on that end. Various Xbox feature improvements, which might be the thing there to bring it to parity. Server transfers and migrations, improvements to the building system, new islands, PALs, bosses, technologies, and this is what you'd expect from the studio there, Pocket Pair. With Palworld, it's off and running incredibly fast, right? I mean, you definitely want to double down and continue to not only improve the game itself in terms of stability and features, but also with content, because this seems like something they could be working on for the next 10 plus years. It's still in early access, hasn't really come out yet, so imagine what can happen when they get it to version 1.0 and they're ready to launch it across all different platforms. 7 million copies now. I mean, really, the sky's the limit with something like this. Next up, let's talk about another PlayStation remaster that's heading to the PS5. This from the PS4 generation. We don't really have any shortages of that, but let's head over here to a familiar source, that's D-Labs, where they say the title Until Dawn will soon arrive in a brand new version, which will be available on PS5, but also on PC. They also go on to mention that as they said with Death Stranding 2 on the beach, they're estimating the announcement will take place within 15 days. So again, we're playing into the idea of a state of play happening most likely in the next 2 weeks. This, along with the Death Stranding 2 information, would probably be in there. And it is funny to think of Until Dawn getting that PS5 remaster, but also moving it to PC, which is a big initiative from Sony, especially since we do know that there is an Until Dawn movie that's now in the works. Seems to be pretty early on, but if you're Sony and you feel like that movie is coming out during the PS5 generation, you may as well have a PS5 version of the game in the box and stuff on either the store or in retail stores. It makes sense, and it seems to have worked for The Last of Us Part 2 Remaster that launched better than Part 1 in the UK so far, and yeah, probably because of the popularity of the show. Until Dawn, though, was interesting. It came out in 2015, and I didn't even think about that. I was like, I feel like that's kind of recent. That's almost 9 years ago, so that's lining up, I think, a bit better to where it's, okay, it's a decade almost old. All right, you want to do a remaster, sure, but that's from Supermassive, and the game already looked pretty good. I'm curious what exactly we're going to see from it. Maybe some more story elements, I guess, some different branching paths, maybe some things that they had to cut out before that they can put back in. So that's kind of where we are, just more remasters coming to the PS5, and for some reason, they just won't touch Bloodborne. What is going on? Next up, let's talk about a statement from Fantastic, which is the studio that brought us The Day Before, which was an incredible situation that took place where the game launched. It was just terrible quality, buggy, barely worked, did not live up to expectations or promises that were made, and then it was gone along with the studio 4 days later. Well, for some reason, they're back. However, as I read through this and got to the end of the statement, I realized why they're back, and I was just joking about it, but I think I basically said this just a few days ago. All right, let's take a look. Here's the full statement over on Twitter, and I'm just going to read certain pieces of this, as they mostly wanted to respond to a lot of critics in the media as to why The Day Before ended up flopping to the point where it's gone. They said, certain bloggers made huge money by creating false content with huge titles from the very beginning to gain views and followers, exploiting the lack of information about the game's development. Their actions triggered a gold rush among content creators due to the game's pre-release popularity. Okay, that's one way to go about it. You can blame the news sites who, I mean, their job is to look into this stuff and try to get answers for people out there who are watching, maybe trying to make a decision on if they're buying. Anyway, they say we implemented everything shown in the trailers, from home improvements and a detailed world to off-road vehicles. We only disabled a few minor features like parkour due to bugs, but plan to include them in the full release, which, hey, You guessed it, got them community noted, as they say their claim that the finished product only had minor changes from the original release trailer is a blatant lie, as demonstrated in this video. And they say the game was a scam by every measurable metric. So, Okay, the Twitter community note's not pulling any punches. So why are they showing up with this statement? Well, the answer lies in their final sentence. But we'll start here. We are grateful to all the senders of mails who expressed support and appealed not to give up and to continue to work. Finally, we encourage you to subscribe to our social networks to know what will happen next. That's right, I had joked about this when we talked about their servers being turned off for the day before and that they would pop up eventually with a new game. They made this statement, I feel like at the end there, to introduce a new game at some point, and that's going to happen maybe sooner than later, because they could just, I'm sure, come up with some kind of trailer and make a bunch of promises and try to do the day before all over again. It sounds crazy, but I kind of feel like that's the move here, and that's why they left off with follow us to find out what's next, which, wow, okay. We'll see how that one goes for them, because I think most people now are just like, well, we're not going to take your word for whatever you show. We'll just wait for it to come out and just assume that you're going to disappear 4 days after it releases. After what we saw with the day before, there's probably not a lot of trust left. But hey, we'll find out what Fantastic shows up with here. Probably, I'm not kidding, over the summer, even before the end of this year. That should be a lot of fun. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about some recent layoffs that have been hitting the gaming industry in 2024. We know in 2023, layoffs were widespread across a bunch of different studios, big and small. But to start off 2024, we've already seen like an incredible amount of layoffs hit this industry. For example, we can see this posted up over on Kotaku saying 24 days into 2024 and 3,900 plus video game layoffs have been announced. They have a large list of different layoffs that have happened, like Unity, for example, 1,800 people. We know Twitch laid off 500 people, Discord, 170 people. Remember, all three of those are closely tied, obviously, to just gaming in general, whether it's through communication, streaming, or just middleware that people will use for engines. Thunderful, 20% of staff, around 100 people. Riot Games recently announced that 530 people were being laid off. People Can Fly, over 30 people. And check this out, Black Forest Games, around 50 people. Now, if you're unsure, Black Forest Games, they made the Destroy All Humans 1 and 2 remakes, but they're also the studio tasked with making Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin, and okay, that is not what I like to hear, because I feel like there's a lot of potential with Last Ronin, but we know Embracer Group has really been going through it, and that is a shame. I mean, across the board, it's obviously a shame to see almost 4,000 people having been laid off this year, and we're not even at the end of January, and I hate to say it, I think it's going to continue to get worse. Like the number of layoffs, when we look back on this year, 2024, when we get to the end, I think it's going to be staggering. So just keep that in mind. It's going to be very rough, I think, for the game industry, especially with jobs for developers who might just be getting burned out. And look, there's a limited number of people in the industry who are developing games, and it's tough when a lot of them start leaving because they see how the churn is in the industry. It's not good for just game development in general. You'd like to see more people coming in with interest in creating games with fun new ideas, but when they see how people are treated, especially in some of these larger companies where they'll just cut 500 to 600 people in the blink of an eye, it's just not very appealing. So we'll see as we go along, but don't be surprised if we see like larger companies cut hundreds of people just out of nowhere, because I think it's gonna be a consistent thing throughout this year. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We're asked, have you played Palworld? Look at this, 79% say no, I haven't played it. 13% say yes on Game Pass, 9% say I bought it. Wow, okay. So that's on a poll of 25,000 votes here. And of course, it's not on PlayStation or Nintendo, and I feel like if it was, this poll may be more skewed to at least people having played it. But that just tells me there's still a large number of people out there, a large number of potential customers that might want to try out Palworld. And again, it's an early access now. Sony doesn't have like an early access game preview thing to mind, or at least I haven't really seen it. I know Microsoft does, obviously. Palworld is there now. Nintendo, maybe for the next system. We'll see how Nintendo views Palworld going forward, but again, there's so many other places they can deploy Palworld, and it continues to build on just Steam alone. I think this could be a massive, massive thing going forward. Do I think it'll reach the likes of Minecraft? It's hard to say, but yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if it did eventually overtake the best-selling Pokemon games, even though it's not really a Pokemon game if you play it. It's more like Ark Survival Evolved. It's just the similarities and comparisons between the designs for the creatures themselves. So yeah, I think right now we're seeing the beginnings of a behemoth live service game, and it's going to be very interesting to see how it continues to evolve. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Gorilla, who says that Omni Tile is really cool, but a lot of the reason VR isn't ever going to take off the way they want it is that it requires too much room, too much setup, too much general hassle. Then most people want to play a game. They just want to click the TV and the console on and start playing, not 20 minutes of dragging stuff out of the closet, setting it up, and then playing the game. It turns gaming into a chore. No, you're absolutely right about that. I think that's one of the reasons that even though the all-in-one headsets like the Quest 2 and Quest 3 are less powerful, clearly, than a PSVR 2 paired with a PS5, the convenience of just an all-in-one headset where you don't have cables running everywhere and worrying about a console and then the headset is just more appealing. So I don't think something like that, the Hollow Tile, is really going to be more consumer level in housing until it continues to improve to where they're almost like you buy it and it just looks like a carpet, but it's really like microscopic, these little microscopic tiles all over it, and you barely feel like the floor is moving around you. And that could be several lifetimes in the future. We may never see something like that, but that is probably like holodeck level, and that I think is where people will be more interested. When you walk in, as you say, into a room and you flip a couple of switches and boom, you're wherever you want to be in your holodeck basement. That'd be really cool. I hope we do see it in this lifetime, but I'm not really counting on it. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was the Palworld phenomenon that's going on, whether it's the sales, the roadmap, the lawyers playing the game. Let me know your thoughts are so far. Again, after 7 million copies have sold. And then also, what about the PS5 getting more remasters from the PS4 generation with Until Dawn? Do you think this continues to work towards maybe a state of play happening in the next week or two? And then fantastic, they're coming back to let us know that it was the media who had it out for them, and that's why the day before didn't work out. Do you think they really are prepping an announcement for their next game? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.